Podemos is a far-left populist party in Spain whose leader has called Israel a, quote, illegal country and once hosted a talk show with anti-Semitic content on an Iranian-funded TV station. But that did not stop the Spanish government from bringing Podemos into the ruling coalition in 2020. And that, warns the Anti-Defamation League in a new report, is a warning sign. A sign that anti-Semitism in Europe that has traditionally found expression on the far right or on the fascist or neo-Nazi side of the political spectrum is increasingly also finding expression and acceptance among far-left parties on the continent. The report cites political developments in such countries as France, the UK, Germany, and warns that opinions on Jews in Israel that may have been considered extreme a few years ago are now seen in some quarters as a centrist opinion in the wider discourse. Well, joining us for more on this is Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League in New York. Jonathan, thank you for joining us. Well, first of all, the reports are a reminder that the ADL is not just focused on the U.S., but internationally, also on Europe. So tell us about the decision to focus on this issue in Europe and how you went about it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. And it's a great way to start the conversation, because I think of my job description as simple. It's protect the Jewish people. Not protect the Jewish people just in America, not protect the Jewish people just from one side of the political spectrum, not just protect the Jewish people in particular circumstances, but all the time, everywhere, in any way we can. And what we're looking at in Europe is a complicated and in many ways worsening political situation. Now, of course, there's a lot of talk, particularly in the US media, about the rise of the far right, and that's with good reason. We're also seeing not just troubling signs, but real threats from the extreme left. And the blurring of lines between anti-Israel rhetoric and anti-Semitism is something that we've been alert to for a long time. But we issued this report in partnership with some organizations in Europe and provided case studies because we think we need to shine a spotlight on the fact that, well, we know anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, but we need to make that more clear for non-Jewish audiences so they can see through the propaganda, so they can understand what's really behind these different actors. And it isn't a political position, it's prejudice, plain and simple.
Right. Now, I mentioned this political party in Spain, this fringe party, but maybe the most glaring example of what you're talking about happened in the UK, where the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn came into power with extreme anti-Israeli rhetoric that also bled into very familiar anti-Semitic tropes, such as outsized Jewish, exaggerated Jewish influence.
You're right. So you did mention Podemos, this left-wing party in Spain, which is like the favorite political vehicle of the Islamic Republic of Iran, because they spew ugly, toxic anti-Semitism, not anti-Israel positions. It's anti-Semitism dressed up as a political position. And as you mentioned, Jeremy Corbyn, literally, he was nearly the head. He wasn't just the head of the Labour Party, nearly the head of government in the UK. And this is a man who regularly engaged in, classic anti-Semitic stereotypes and libels. But again, he would frame it as if it was about Israel. But what we see, whether it's calls for the BDS movement, they've become commonplace in leftist political circles, claims that Jewish cabals control politics and media, trivializing the Holocaust, equating Israel with the Nazi regime, the false charge, the fiction that accusations of anti-Semitism are used to silence, criticism of Israel, like nothing could be farther from the truth. And I should say one thing, as you said in your beginning, the ADL, we are very focused on the United States. Most of our resources are here. Our offices are mostly here, but we know what starts in Europe will come to America. So we are literally waving the flag and casting a sign so that American officials, so the American public can recognize that this European threat can take hold here and poison our public conversation if we don't stop it in its tracks.
All right. Well, certainly a disturbing trend that certainly deserves the attention the ADL is giving it. Jonathan Greenblatt of the Anti-Defamation League, thank you for joining us on I-24.
Thank you.